Welcome to this explainer. Look, if you are a chief information security officer, or frankly anyone on a risk management team, you already know that keeping your sensitive data inside your organization is just getting harder every single day. So today, we are going to build a strategic blueprint for deploying Microsoft Purview Endpoint Data Loss Prevention, or DLP. We're going to break down exactly how to stop insider risks right at the endpoint, and we'll do it using a step-by-step approach that actually maximizes your security without stalling your company's everyday productivity. I want to kick things off by posing a critical risk mitigation question directly to you. Picture this. How do you stop a departing employee from walking out the door with a USB drive completely loaded with your sensitive client data? It is a total nightmare scenario for any CISO, right? Because they have authorized access right up until their very last minute, and dragging and dropping files to a thumb drive is terrifyingly easy. This is the exact real-world threat we are solving today.
Here is our roadmap for today. We'll cover stopping the insider threat, deploying Endpoint DLP, boosting accuracy with labels, testing in simulation mode, and finally, a 90-day tuning plan. Okay, let's dive into Section 1, stopping the insider threat and closing those exfiltration gaps.
You know, a lot of organizations think, hey, we've got a Microsoft 365 E3 license. We're totally protected. And E3 does provide great DLP for emails and SharePoint. But the reality is, data exfiltration actually happens at the endpoint. To truly protect those critical vectors where data leaves the machine, like removable storage, you need an E5 license. With E5, we can monitor and block data moving to USBs. We can stop a user from copying credit card numbers to their clipboard and pasting them into their personal webmail. We can audit the printing of confidential documents and entirely block browser uploads to personal cloud drives.
But what about those really technically aware users who might try to bypass your endpoint controls entirely? Well, that's where MDCA, or Microsoft Defender for Cloud Apps, comes into play. Integrating MDCA is absolutely essential because it extends your Purview DLP policies directly into third-party cloud apps like Box, Dropbox, or Salesforce. Just a quick note, this specific capability does require the full M365 E5 or the E5 security add-on, but it perfectly closes the loop on web uploads.
Moving right along to Section 2, deploying Endpoint DLP, specifically device visibility and configuration.
So how do we actually get this going? It really comes down to 3 automated steps. First, you have to enable device monitoring inside the Purview Compliance Center. Second, for a scalable rollout across your environment, Microsoft Intune is absolutely your go-to method. You'll enable the Microsoft Defender for Endpoint Connector and then deploy an Intune mobile device management profile to push the configuration to your entire fleet. And finally, you verify that those devices are successfully communicating with Purview.
Once you push that Intune profile, you'll head over to the device onboarding screen in the Purview portal to verify successful endpoint policy enforcement. A vital pro tip here. After you push the profile, it can easily take a couple of hours for the devices to sync and actually show up in this list. Because of that delay, getting your devices onboarded should literally be your top day one task.
Okay, devices are visible. Now, we build the policies. And for the security architects out there, standardizing your naming conventions is literally going to save your sanity as your environment scales. The recommended best practice is to name your policy by location, condition, and policy type. Then, name your specific rules by location, condition, and action. So for example, EDLP_UK PII data_block file activities. It's brilliant because it tells you instantly where it applies, what it's looking for, and exactly what action it takes.
With those naming conventions locked in, we actually configure the endpoint vectors to create our workflows. And this is exactly how we solve our hook question. We configure the rule to specifically block copying files to removable USB devices. We block clipboard paste to unallowed browsers. And maybe we just audit local printing. By applying these specific configurations, we directly stop that departing employee from exfiltrating client files to a thumb drive or their personal webmail. We neutralize the threat right at the source.
Let's hit Section 3, boosting accuracy with labels. It's all about precision versus noise. And this brilliantly illustrates the massive difference in policy approaches. Look, if you build a basic policy that's just hunting for regex keywords, say scanning for credit card numbers or generic financial terms, it is going to be incredibly noisy. You're going to get high false positives and disrupt the business. But if you rely on predefined sensitivity labels, like marking a specific document as highly confidential, you dramatically improve your precision. You are enforcing actions based on clear, definitive data classification rather than just guessing.
I absolutely love this quote from the source material because it perfectly captures the strategy. The label carries the classification decision. DLP enforces the policy based on that decision. What this really means is that Purview information protection and data loss prevention shouldn't be treated as two separate silos. Integrating sensitivity labels creates a single unified program that maximizes your accuracy, lowers false positives, and ensures you aren't accidentally blocking legitimate business workflows.
All right, Section 4, testing in simulation mode. Basically, your risk-free rollout.
Now, what's really interesting here is a specific setting that is an absolute lifesaver. When you create your rules, always select Run the Policy in Simulation Mode. This is how you test blocking actions without causing a single bit of business disruption. Even if your rule's action is officially set to block, while it's in simulation mode, the system is only going to audit that action.
And the workflow here is fantastic. Once you're running in simulation mode, the system generates this highly detailed output. You can review the exact matches and see the actual volume of alerts being generated. By reviewing this data first, you can spot legitimate workflows you might have overlooked, tweak your exceptions, and confidently lower that initial false positive rate before you ever actively start enforcing blocks.
Which brings us to Section 5, the 90-day tuning plan to reach sub 5% false positives.
Once you're rolling, your Purview policies list connects directly into the DLP Analytics capabilities. Think of the DLP Analytics dashboard as your absolute central command post. The operational benefits here are huge. It gives you deep insights into recent events, flags your top data protection risks, and even acts as an intelligent recommendation engine. It's incredibly powerful for spotting policy blind spots and finding clear opportunities to improve your rules.
Then, inside the centralized alerts dashboard, your compliance admins will investigate the actual policy violations. But more importantly, they can use this dashboard to track incident trends. They can see exactly which users or which specific workloads are triggering the bulk of the alerts. And using those incident trends is exactly how your team resolves false positives and continuously tunes your rule exceptions to fit the business.
So, let's pull the whole shebang together into a strategic 90-day tuning plan for the CISO. On day 1, you deploy entirely in audit and simulation mode. By day 30, your team is deeply analyzing those incident trends inside the DLP Alerts dashboard. By day 60, you're fine-tuning your sensitivity labels and dialing in your workflow exceptions. And by day 90, this methodical process will drive your false positive rate from an initial 20 or 25% all the way down to under 5%. At that point, you safely flip the switch from simulation to enforce, actively blocking threats without breaking your company's workflow.
So I'll leave you with this final, somewhat provocative thought. The modern workplace has completely transformed. We aren't just relying on email and lockdown local network shares anymore. Sensitive data lives right on the endpoints, it travels through personal web browsers, and it's actively synced across third-party clouds. So you have to ask yourself, is your current DLP coverage actually matching where your sensitive data travels today? Because if you don't have true visibility and control directly on the endpoint, the answer is probably no. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer on Endpoint DLP, and I really hope this playbook helps you lock down your organization's most critical assets.